Hello everyone, and welcome back to Unity of Command. This is the campaign scenario Advance on Kiev from the Red Turn DLC. This is the first map of the final pair of scenarios which commence simultaneously along with Lower Dnieper. They both start on August the 25th, 1943. And as you know, in all such cases, we always go with the northernmost one first. So, August the 25th, 1943. The success of Operation Kutuzov and the recapture of Orel forces the Germans west and north of Kursk to retreat. The Soviets seize the initiative and advance towards the Dnieper. The Germans will receive reinforcements. Right. Alright, first look at the first glance at the forces allocation. It seems that we outnumber the Axis forces 3-2 roughly. We also have logistics special actions, 2 per turn all throughout the scenario, and the bridging action more than once, but I'm not sure if it's 1 on every turn. So it's limited to 1 per turn, but I think it's overall you can construct 2 bridges or something like that. Now this is a gimmicky scenario. It's a gimmick scenario, and depending on the gimmick I might even like it, but unfortunately this features an idea that I'm not very fond of. It's not difficult, it can just be annoying, basically irritating. And regarding the reinforcements, we receive a few steps as reinforcements. The Axis keeps receiving 1 step per turn on most turns, or all turns I believe, and on turn 6 they receive a few units. So actually this is not relevant or not important to consider this Axis reinforcements. By the time they arrive, you should be winning already. So anyway, what you're going to see is the first attempt. As I've said, it's not a very difficult map, to put it mildly. So, yeah. So, that's the whole map. Let me just, position the view correctly. And this is all there is to it. One interesting tidbit and one highly unusual characteristic of this map is that on turn 1 there is not going to be any fighting whatsoever from either side. We are far too far from the Axis front line to to cause any effective damage. And yeah, so turn 1 will pass by with just movements, advances. But let's not rush ahead. Let's take a look at our objectives first. There are 4 objectives to hit. All of them are quite far to the west, and all of them are currently unoccupied, interestingly. That is going to change, obviously, but this already shows an interesting aspect of this scenario, is that we are not directly in front of the front line, I mean the defensive front line that the Axis has put up. And these forces are also quite far from the objectives as well, so they're sitting in the middle of nowhere practically. Anyway, first objective to the extreme south is the Kiev crossing. The Dnieper knee provides good terrain for a crossing that can't be thrown back across the river, to be taken by the end of turn 6. Right, it's in a bend, as the text clearly says, so it's a kind of tricky, a little bit tricky to capture, but at least on this playthrough the AI never occupied it, so at least we have that. Then a bit to the northwest we have approach to Kiev. Clearing the approaches to Kiev will allow us to create bridgeheads across the Dnieper at a later stage, to be taken by the end of turn 7. This, I think, is the most difficult one to capture. It's in a really bad position. Still nothing horrible, just, you know, that's the kind of the crux of the scenario. And the final 2 objectives are north of the Desna River. The first one is the road to Gomel in the extreme northwest, right in front of Gomel actually. Prevent the bulk of Army Group Center from supporting forces to the south. And a bit to the south, in the middle of absolute nowhere, there is Chernihiv, or today Chernihiv. Stavka intends to launch operations to cross the Dnieper from the Chernigov area. Both of these need to be taken by the end of turn 8. They are extremely easy to do, or at least with my strategy it was easier than the southern half. And yeah, let's take a look at the terrain. Weather is not going to be a problem. It's August, September, so everything will be fine. And the thing is that once again this map is kind of cut in half with the Desna River. Fortunately, there are a lot of crossings available, so you can allocate forces to the other front sector easily. But still, it's best to look at this map as in two halves. The southern half consists of mostly open terrain. After we pass this forest and swamp area, which the AI never tried to hold, so we just bypass it literally. And we will duke it out with the AI forces here in the middle of nowhere. And then we have to cross the Dnieper and get to this victory hex, which is situated between river and forest, so it's a bit uncomfortable. However, to the north, the situation is far worse. It's full of forests and swamps, and the Desna River once again. And the AI is smart enough to try to hold the two bridges available there. So, so yeah, that's going to present some problems at least. Fortunately, the enemy forces do not really pose a challenge. I'll come back to this. So actually, it's not very difficult to fight through them and to capture objectives, as I mentioned. Now let's take a look at the supplies. First of all, the AI has 3 supply sources. 2 of them are on the supply line network, which is quite extensive, and 1 of them off-road to supply the forces if they should be cut off in the south, I guess. Basically what that means is that you cannot cut like all of them off from supply. You can cut off smaller amounts of units. You can create some pockets, if you will, but the majority of the Axis forces will remain in supply all throughout the battle, which is fine. And our supply line is kind of interesting, and here is where the gimmick comes in. We have 2 supply sources, one in the extreme south, kind of in the middle, with a range of 5, and the other one is on the road network, or supply line network, with a range of 8 in the extreme east. However, the road goes off the map, both in the north and in the south. So what that means is that we have no supply sources on the road, like really on the road, like nothing here. That is why at the very beginning of this map you have to make a decision which supply source you are going to constantly reinforce throughout the map. If you alternate between them, then you cannot win this map by the I mean, you cannot win a brilliant victory here. Depending on which one you choose means that that part of the front line will get a little bit ahead, a little bit boost, because the way it will work is that we will always be held back by our supply practically. So so what that means is that I chose the one in the east because that was stronger, and in effect it means that I could rush ahead with the northern forces relatively fast, or with a decent pace, but it also meant that in the first few turns I couldn't get very far ahead with the forces in the south. And if you decide to reinforce the southern supply source, then that will mean that you get you can rush to the first objectives more quickly, but you will have to wait in the north, around here, around the edge of the forest, until the supply power from the south reaches there towards the north, and then you can recommence your operations. I think the scenario designer meant for you to reinforce this one because the southern objectives are to be captured earlier. But anyway, I chose the other one. It was still perfectly fine, so it's nothing crucial. And here is the gimmick. So basically, the forces that we have on the map, both sides, are totally unequal. The AI cannot put up a real fight. So if we had unlimited supply or supply on the road network, we would wash them off the map, and I think this map could be finished in like 5 turns. And with the destruction of all the AI forces. However, you cannot do that. You cannot destroy these forces. You have to actually hold back constantly and wait for supply to catch up. which gives some time for the AI to reallocate some forces. They are still totally pathetic, so wherever your supply reaches, you should be able to annihilate all opposition, all opposing forces. And also there is one more thing, because of the way this supply is so crooked, it's actually a good idea to remove as much of the enemy controlled territory, even if it presents no danger at all, as possible, so that, you know, maybe it straightens out some supply line, because it comes, at least in my case, it comes from all the eastern part of the map, so all through using this supply line. Yeah, so that's basically it. Whenever we get in contact with the enemy, we almost immediately win and just, you know, annihilate them. But slowly we have to, you know, keep on pausing and waiting and rushing back to supply in some cases until we reach the west of the map, basically. Okay, as for forces, we have 6 tank divisions, 1 motorized. That includes 1 motorized. This is the best unit we have on the battlefield. It has a Katyusha specialist step and it's veteran. We also have 2 further veteran tank divisions, which are also quite powerful with specialist steps. We also have a few other specialist steps. Interestingly, we have very few infantry guns for some reason, and the Su-76M makes an inglorious return, but at least we have a few T-34s as well, which are, you know, we know them to be very useful, attached to infantry units. Your infantry is nothing special as usual, but we outnumber the AI's forces, so, and since we cannot engage them and we cannot rush ahead anyway, then we will only engage whatever is kind of in our grip, in our reach, and for them the tank forces will be more than sufficient to destroy them. So yeah, as for the Axis forces, the front line is not cohesive, so there are huge gaps here, as you can see. They consist of standard infantry divisions, nothing to be scared about. They have a very few specialist steps. There is a Stuk here, Marder Dry, don't be afraid of this one, this is not really scary. Another Stuk 3 here, and this Panzer division, which is supposed to be the best unit on the battlefield from the AI side, also has a Marder Dry Ausführung M. Again, not a very scary opponent. These 3 veteran Panzer divisions are supposed to be the you know, the strong points or the strongholds of the enemy defense, but they are not really that powerful. You can actually take them head on with your better units. So there is nothing the AI can push, you know, can offer to offer resistance to you. We also have 1 further very weak infantry division in the far west. The AI is going to move it immediately into this victory axe and reinforce it with some steps, so it's going to be halfway decent. Now, nothing scary. So once again, the story is this: select one of the 2 supply sources. I selected the easternmost one, and just advance as far as you can. That's it. Let's see how it happened. In my case, as I've mentioned, we are not going to have any kind of fighting action taking place on turn 1, so don't expect any fireworks, and we are just walking or going up until the edge of the supply, because we really want to make sure that everything and everyone is in supply, at least here. Later on, you will of course have to abandon this regularly, this not so complicated strategy. And yeah, that's basically it. This is as far as we got. Now the AI, as usual, is going to try to occupy some of the victory hexes, and once again, as usual, they'll give up their entrenchment for no real good reason. Like, this was totally dumb to present a weaker front line here. On the positive note for them, they are trying to hold the bridges, which is smart, obviously. Now, that's it. Basically, we have a storm here, but fortunately it doesn't affect us. Now, you can immediately see that the AI was thinking that this 1 Panzer division is going to hold off our forces on the supply line, which it won't, and this weak front line of infantry divisions is going to stop us here, which it also won't. So this is totally not a very good plan, to put it mildly. It didn't move some of its forces in the north. I don't know why, but yeah, these are also inconsequential. Let's raise our supply, and with the supply power of 12, we can advance at least somewhat in the south. not in the extreme south, but at least here around the river. And we can definitely advance in the north, so let's do that. Let's destroy this tank division. It's, yeah, we destroyed it one-on-one without suffering any losses, so that was nothing. And I actually, we got the reinforcements, and I actually decided to reinforce this one too, so that it's at 7+1 step strength. I know that it I knew that it would lose its veteran status, but it's just 1 KI away from regaining it, which is going to happen the next turn. So I'm not afraid of it. It's never going to turn elite, so there is not much to destroy anyway. It's not enough enemy forces to make it turn elite, so that's fine. Now, as I've mentioned, this is really not it's really not a challenge to pick up the enemy units to destroy, but I need to make sure that at least those are units that were out of supply the previous turn remain in supply in this one. So that's why it's kind of crucial to see where you place them. And yeah, the other thing is you can actually pick where you attack, like where you want your forces to fight, because you don't need to destroy, like you're not forced to destroy all of these units, right? If things stay as it is, then slowly but surely this unit will run out of supply anyway, and then we can just remove it off the map. So isolating the enemy forces is totally viable, and I just allocated some infantry steps we received, like this one. Here, so this is a perfectly good strategy. I'm just the problem is not that it's not useful. The problem is that it's simply not necessary, because most of the AI's units are simply too weak like that. This one actually remains in supply from the south. Yeah, but those two units are out. The AI captures or reinforces or holds one of the victory axes. It bunches up in our face, which is a very bad idea for it. We have a lot of forces there that are clearly superior to it. Otherwise, they are in a full retreat. At least in the north, it's an almost full retreat apart from this one unit. And on our turn 3, we raise our supply once more, and as you can see, it finally reached in the south. So we can move ahead slowly and baby steps, whatever. In the north, it's great. We could actually cross the river if we can. So let's see what happens. And that was pretty underwhelming. Let's use our best unit here, and it regained its veteran status, so that was great. Okay, I was hoping this unit would get destroyed, but it didn't. We are not in a hurry. It's not like we can. Advance very far ahead with our current supply situation. We just moved until the very edge of our supply, but. So what I'm trying to do instead, what I'm attempting here, is to weaken or destroy as many of these units as possible, so that there is no chance for them to retreat either. That's a not very complicated strategy. As I've said, this unit is starting to get reinforced, which is also not going to be important whatsoever. Here, I don't want this unit to clog up so many of our units and also our supply a bit. So let's destroy it. Yep, it's not an issue. And in the north, we don't want these units to run away, to escape, basically. We create a breach here. I was kind of... there is a breach, there is another one here, but I was kind of thinking that we could rush ahead here and just destroy these units in the middle of, in the middle of marching. So that never truly materialized, but whatever. I used the infantry to attack this enemy unit because it had a flak specialist step, which was actually gives it a martyr dry. Still, it gives it a little bit of extra boost against armor, so I didn't want to risk losing some of my armored steps. And yeah, and this one is also removed off the map. It actually holds this northern bridge with a relatively decent unit, so a head-on attack is not recommended in this situation. In the south, once again, we can just move and destroy as much as we possibly can. So it's a good idea to always try to clear out as many of the AI's units as possible. Later on, you will you'll be happy that they're not, you know, they don't cause you any bother. It's not like they will stop you, but you know, they can be inconvenient. All right, we advanced as far as we could, and actually, oops, let me go back to the previous turn. Actually, almost everything is in supply except for the westernmost forces. That's because there's a whole bunch of swamp here. There's a whole bunch of swamp here which slows down supply, but whatever. Now the AI is totally already kind of hopeless, at least in an open battle, in my opinion. So there's not much it can really do. We can still mess it up, but we won't. So let's raise our supply once again, twice more. And that is why this southern bridge was a good idea, in my opinion, because once we connect up, then actually the supply will reach better from the south, because there is there isn't any swamp here, it's only in this band, which is not important. All right, as usual, reorganize depleted units. That goes off without saying. Next turn we reorganize this one as well, and just push ahead. And yes, as you can see, the air forces kind of melt. I was hoping this one would melt too, but it didn't. So this unit of ours is going to be unable to attack the next turn, unfortunately. And yeah, we're just streaming forward. Basically, there is nothing here to cause us any damage or issues, or you know, to scare us. And this one is really interesting. So we basically, with our best unit, we managed to destroy 9 infantry steps, one after the other, so one division after the other, and it could still attack theoretically because it overran both of them. So that's to show you how much we overpower the resistance here. At this very moment, the AI has 6 units altogether on the battlefield. I know 2 of them are panzer divisions, and it still has 3 specialist steps, but believe me, they are not really scary whatsoever. So all we need to do is be patient, build up our supply, and just, you know, capture objectives. The only one that's kind of tricky is this one, because we need to capture it on turn 6. That's why we rush ahead and build a bridge. What I did is I rushed to different positions on this river with my tank until I found one where I could construct a bridge. Next turn, we will be able to cross it and capture it. It's absolutely fine. I was thinking that this tank unit could move in to block us, then we would cross the bridge here, so it couldn't really block us. But it never did, so it prioritized protecting this central victory hex. So it never allocated any forces to this one in the south, so that's fine. And once again, we are just carefully allocating our forces, you know, so to remain in supply mostly. If you want a brilliant victory, you will sometimes have to risk getting out of it, at least for one turn, so you have to play a little bit of a game like that. But otherwise, we stopped here because this is exactly the edge of our supply, and as you can see, it's far from the enemy position. So it's really this gimmick of the map really annoyed me, that because there is no strategy to this, like this, there is no brain work to this, and the only reason that we have not won yet basically is because of the scenario designer. It's not strategy, it's not forces, no nothing. The AI finally holds this victory X in the north and even reinforces it, but it's still quite pathetic. As we knew this, we knew that this this tank division won't be able to attack, and it won't. So that's sad news. But we'll make sure it will be resupplied this turn, which I think is already going to be the case, right? It doesn't need to move anywhere; it's still good. Let's try to remove this one unit in the north, and it actually ran away after one step loss. This is a standard flight action from the AI, or rather from the programming, so we cannot destroy it in this turn, unfortunately. Not that it represents any threat, so we don't care. And once again, we are just going to, capture this victory X, and we rush ahead with our best unit and try to destroy this panzer division. This doesn't work out very well. I don't know why there is no river here, so we just attacked it head on. And I was hoping we could cause it at least a bit of damage. Instead, it suffered 3 suppression, which means that it will reinforce it will get back into full supply the next turn, unfortunately. So we lost 2 steps in vain, but what can you do? And once again, I march up to the edge of our supply. That's why it kind of looks lame. I know that we are standing in a line like this, but it makes sense at the same time. Right. Okay, so this is where we are at the end of turn 5, our turn 5 rather, and the AI hasn't lost many units previously, but I mean on our turn, but it stands no chance. And actually move this tank beyond river cover, but the AI still attacks it and causes it some damage, which is fine, I guess. Now it's on turn 6. That's all the AI did. And finally, the supply reaches almost up until the victory hex. So let's see what happens here. We destroy it. And don't forget that we need to capture it on the next turn, so it's kind of important that we try to do something about it. Now, I knew that this wouldn't be very useful. I put 3 steps on this unit, and I moved it out of supply next to the city, which means that these will still be, suppressed when the next turn on the next turn we start to besiege the city with its gun. But I thought it still gives it a tiny bit of extra strength, and once it can get back to supply, then it will be even better. So I was hoping that it would work out well, not that I could allocate it to anywhere better. And now let's attack the Panzer divisions head on. As you know, they're when we outnumber them so much, then they're not really a threat. Let's remove this unit as well. And this tank division cannot attack. And this time I made sure that I'm in supply, so obviously the AI cannot attack this unit. It would literally be destroyed, fully destroyed. I don't think it would cause us any casualties. It's still quite strong, so only 1 step is suppressed. And in the next turn there won't be any steps suppressed. So I'm 100% sure that on turn 7, 1 turn ahead of time, we'll be able to capture both of these victory hexes. So only the southern one remains, which I'm also quite positive we'll be able to capture, but let's see. We have to capture it the next turn anyway, so that's where our not too complicated strategy may fail at this moment at the very least. And those promised reinforcements are still nowhere to be found, interestingly. And here they arrive. 1 Sturmgeschütz, a Panzer division with a Marder, and 2 worthless infantry divisions. The AI attacks, nothing dangerous. The AI attacks, nothing, nothing to be afraid of, nothing scary. And it starts to march towards the east. Now, this was totally inconsequential. I was really surprised that this is part of the scenario design, because we need to capture this on turn 7. So, if the AI receives forces on turn 6, it cannot even get them into any worthwhile position. It's as if they didn't exist at all whatsoever. The only thing is that we might not be able to, in another attempt, we might not be able to capture these 2 on turn 7, so we have another turn to capture them. But in that case, then we would just have to hold this one, which doesn't seem very difficult against these paltry, meager forces, to be honest. Yeah, that reinforcement is also bogus. So it's our turn 7, and our strategy is very simple. We should win on this turn. These 2 units will be dead, and so we will win in the north. And if we win, well, if we lose in the south, we lose anyway, because we need to capture it on turn 7. So these units will have never come to any action or to any meaning whatsoever. So let's see how it works out. We first use our gun. That doesn't work out very well, but whatever. We raise while I'm thinking, I raise the supply source once again. I move to the north because I know that this unit will be in supply. I don't know why I consider this important, but whatever. Now let's send our best unit here, and bang, we won. This actually overran the defending AI unit, which means that after moving into the victory X, we could still attack any one of these neighboring units and actually cause it grievous casualties, especially to the infantry. I think they are both on clear hexes. Yep, so nothing scary. But we don't care about that. We have basically won in the south. We have completely won in the south. Let's capture the 2 victory X's in the north. That goes without any problem, and that also goes off without any problems. The end. Our supply barely reaches, but that's also fine. There was nothing ever threatening us in any way, apart from our own lack of logistics. Now, another interesting thing that I forgot to mention is that all of the victory hexes are clear hexes. So the AI tries to protect them, but they don't get any defensive bonuses whatsoever. So they're really easy to capture. I still think that the scenario designer intended for the southern supply source to be raised, and then the things would be a bit different, and then you might have to come to a clash with these units. But I also think that in that case we could either even rush ahead and stop them from spawning, or if they do spawn, we could stop them at the Dnieper, hold them off at the bridge, and then they still wouldn't be any threat to the victory axis. Not that they're very strong anyway, so we have destroyed far larger forces in this scenario. So yeah, I don't get it. It's this scenario. It almost feels like there is no enemy units placed on it, or just very few. Well, that was it. That was advance on Kiev. I hope this video helps you if you're struggling with it, and I hope to see you next time when we're going to take on, well, I wanted to say a bigger challenge, but at least a more complex scenario. It's not really difficult either. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.